The chilling story of Mitchelle Blair, the mother who hid a dark secret in her freezer. This is one of the most disturbing and heartbreaking cases in recent memory. A story so shocking it still leaves people speechless years later. A story that's not just about crime, but about pain, trauma, and how evil can sometimes live right next door without anyone noticing. Mitchelle Blair was a mother living in Detroit, Michigan. To many people, she was just another single mom raising her kids in a tough neighborhood. But what the world didn't know, what nobody could have imagined, was that inside her small apartment, a nightmare was unfolding. A horror that would only be discovered by accident. So let's break down the whole story.
Do you feel what you did was wrong?
I know it's wrong.
What do you think your punishment
wrong
should
in
be?
the eyes of God, okay?
In your eyes, I'm asking you, not in the eyes of God. In your eyes, do you feel like you did what you had to do?
I didn't have to do that. It was wrong. Look, I don't want to say yes, but my son told me I saved him.
It was March 24th, 2015, when a crew arrived at her apartment to carry out an eviction order. Mitchelle hadn't paid rent for months, and the property managers were there to clear the place out. But when they opened her freezer, something they were not prepared for. They found what no one should ever have to see. Inside that freezer, wrapped in plastic, were the frozen bodies of 2 children. 2 of Mitchelle Blair's own children. The workers were horrified. They immediately called the police, and within minutes, the scene was swarming with officers, crime scene units, and neighbors watching in disbelief. People couldn't wrap their heads around it. How could a mother, someone meant to protect and love her kids, be capable of something so cruel? Mitchelle Blair was arrested that same day. As police started digging into the case, more terrifying details came to light. Mitchelle had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. But for years, only her eldest daughter, Gabrielle, and her youngest son, Matthew, were seen. The 2 middle children, Stoni Blair and Stephen Barry, had been missing for almost 3 years. And no one, not the schools, not the neighbors, not even family members, seemed to notice. What's even more disturbing is that Mitchelle didn't deny any of it. In fact, during her court hearings, she spoke openly about what she had done. In a cold, emotionless voice, she told the judge in the courtroom that she had killed her 2 children. She even described in graphic detail how she did it. According to her, it started when she found her younger son, Matthew, playing inappropriately with a doll. She asked him where he had learned that, and he allegedly told her that Stephen, his older brother, had sexually abused him. Instead of calling the police or seeking help, she took matters into her own hands. She admitted to beating Stephen for days, hitting him with belts, fists, and even pouring hot water on his genitals. Eventually, he died from the abuse. She wrapped his body in a plastic bag and put him in the freezer. 8 months later, she said she began to suspect that her daughter Stoni was also involved in the abuse. Again, she didn't go to the police. She beat Stoni too, punched her, burned her, and starved her until she also died. Then she placed her body in the same freezer next to her brother. It's hard to imagine this level of cruelty. It's hard to understand how someone can live in that home with those bodies in the freezer and still function like everything was normal. Even harder to believe, her 2 surviving children were living there the whole time. Her eldest daughter later testified in court. She described how they were forced to lie, how they were terrified of their mother, and how they lived in constant fear. She said they knew their siblings were dead. They saw it, they heard it, but they couldn't speak out. They were children, trapped in silence and terror. Mitchelle Blair never once showed remorse. In fact, during court, she said she would do it again. She said she didn't regret killing her children. Her only regret was not killing them sooner. Her words sent shockwaves through the courtroom and the public. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. Even the judge, who had seen many dark cases before, seemed shaken by her lack of emotion and her cold justifications. Eventually, Mitchelle Blair pleaded guilty to the murders. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But even now, the questions remain. How could something like this happen? Why didn't the schools follow up when the children stopped attending? Why didn't neighbors or family notice something was wrong? And most importantly, how can we prevent tragedies like this from happening again? This case highlighted serious gaps in the system. For nearly 3 years, 2 children were missing, and no one came to check. No welfare checks, no school follow-ups. It was like they had disappeared and nobody cared enough to ask why. Child Protective Services later admitted they had limited contact with the family and that their hands were tied in many situations without formal reports. But that wasn't enough for many people. This case forced Michigan and other states to look more closely at how children are tracked, especially those who suddenly stop going to school or disappear from public view. It also raised questions about mental health of parents and what kind of support they get. Mitchelle Blair had a history of trauma and abuse herself. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it does point to a cycle of pain that went unchecked for too long. Some people believed she was mentally ill. Others believed she was simply evil. Either way, her actions caused pain that can never be undone. Her surviving children were placed into protective custody. They've since been adopted and are reportedly in therapy, trying to rebuild their lives and heal from the unimaginable trauma they experienced. This story is more than just a true crime headline. It's a deep, painful reminder of how broken system can fail the most innocent among us. It reminds us to look out for the children around us, to speak up when something feels off, and to never ignore signs of abuse, no matter how small they may seem. Sometimes, the most dangerous people aren't strangers in the dark alleys. They're the ones living right inside the home. Mitchelle Blair's story continues to be talked about, not just because of the horror she caused, but because it forces us to ask difficult questions about parenting, protection, and justice. It's a case that stays with you, a case that haunts you, because at the center of it are 2 young children, Stephen and Stoni, who didn't deserve what happened to them, who should have had a chance at life, school, love, and laughter, who were silenced by the very person who was supposed to keep them safe. As this story continues to be shared, may we remember them, and may we all be more aware, more alert, and more willing to act when we see children in danger. The truth is, some stories are not easy to tell, but they're necessary. Behind every tragedy like this, there are warning signs that someone, somewhere, might be able to catch before it's too late. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to get more videos and updates. Thanks for watching.